Thanks, Maury. Yes, indeed. Rally drifting, Canadian style. It's a whole new thing that was created by my guest, Fred Weidner. Thanks for coming by, Fred.
Thank you.
Rally drifting is what?
It's a combination of two of the hottest motorsports today, rally and drifting. Rally is more European, but it's really racing on closed roads. And drifting is racing one car at a time or two cars at a time and steering the car by sliding the rear of the car sideways.
Now, I have seen a little bit of this on television, and when you're drifting a car, I mean, it seems to me the courses are almost circular, but they're not circular, right?
No, you want to, that's the hard part, is what's called the transitions between the turns, and keeping those rear tires or all four tires spinning while you're going from a left-hand turn to a right-hand turn is very hard to do.
So it's not necessarily a circular course. It can be like a road course.
Yes, and even on a circular course, they put on something called chicanes and corners and try to make it a little more interesting than just a round course.
Now, there's some movies out that have been highlighting drifting, and they're really popular.
Oh yes, Fast and the Furious, especially with the younger crowd. It's the question is not who hasn't, but who hasn't seen those movies. There's Fast and the Furious. There's Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and there's a new one coming out this summer. And the interesting thing is that some of the stuntmen involved are actually Christians, and so God has placed them in Hollywood in a sphere of influence to help young kids.
And the kids even have video games with this drifting racing, right?
Yes, one of the most popular video games around is called Colin McRae Dirt, and you talk to any 15-year-old, and that's the greatest game around, and that's why we've come up with joining the two sports and creating something new. It's just because both of those forms of motorsports are so popular.
Now, you started big. I mean, here you are, a little over a year old with this new form of racing, and you started in Skydome with a huge monster truck pull. Tell us about that.
Well, that's the amazing thing when I think when God helps you out. I mean, we tend to as humans, start small and we think of percentages, and God thinks of multiples. In the Bible it says 7 times 7 and 100-fold and all that. And our first show was 120,000 people in one weekend. We did 2 shows at the Rogers Center, and it was by the biggest promoter in the world for monster trucks at their biggest show. And that weekend, the management from Chicago was there just by quote-unquote chance, and things just progressed from there. So it's sort of like having your first soccer game being at the World Championship, the FIFA
Right.
Championship. Humanly, it would never happen. But here we are. We started at the top.
Yeah, and then you went over to the Olympic Stadium, and that's another big venue.
Sure. Our second event was 55,000 people, and it's just amazing. Like, we don't know where God's going to lead us, but when you look back, everything was just so perfect.
I think we got some shots of the crowd and the cars here. Now, the cars generally are these Japanese Subarus or Subarus, actually. That's a Subaru.
Yes.
4-wheel drive, 4-cylinder engine, horizontally opposed, boxer engine. 285, 325 horsepower, somewhere around there?
Yes, up to 500 foot-pounds of torque.
Whoa.
They're pretty incredible
and
cars.
This is just shots of your first event at Skydome, right?
Yes, first 2 events.
Yeah, now you had a kind of an instant interest on the part of kids because they'd already been kind of prepped by these movies and these video games, right? They would just assume that you were a part of this culture.
Yes, there was no pre-advertising for our first show, and yet we had, I think, a lineup of 30 kids trying to get autographs. There was instant recognition, and without any pre-advertising.
So the format is 2 cars at a time. It's not a bunch of cars at a time.
No, it's not. No, it's not like oval car racing. Right. It's 2 cars, and usually it's against the clock.
Right.
And even if we race 2 cars, it's against the clock, and the loser goes down and the winner keeps going, sort of thing.
And is it a fairly safe sport compared to other forms of auto racing?
Well, I like to think so because it's only 2 cars at a time. The big danger in racing is not the mistake you make yourself, but the mistake that somebody else makes.
Right.
And sometimes you're in a position where there's nothing you can do about it.
Now, I think we also have some B-roll footage here. Let's take a look at this, and you can tell us what we're looking at. Now that's typical dragging right there.
Yes, we're
In
involved.
NASCAR.
Yes, we're involved with Christian Motorsports Illustrated, and these are some of the footages that they've given us on some of the other Christian teams around North America, and it's just great to see Christians involved in all sorts of motorsports, and getting TV footage and talking to. I mean, look at those crowds in the background. I mean, it's just incredible.
You know, I was at the Coca-Cola 600 2 years ago at Lowe's Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina, and there was 150,000 people there. I mean, I was astonished, and they're kind of like, and I hear you have a chapel service going on. In many ways, you see the start of one of these races, and they're almost like a church service. I mean, they have a chaplain, they committed to the Lord in prayer, and you see all these drivers very, very sincerely bowing their heads and praying along, and one tends to get the impression sometimes that almost all these drivers are believers. I suppose, when your life's at stake, you think twice about your eternal destiny, right?
Well, that's what's just great to be with the Lord, because you see these top-level drivers that are Christians, and it's not really a mainstream thing that you would think about. You see shots of Danica Patrick, with the chaplain in front of some of her races, and that's just great, and it's an inspiration for younger kids. Kids that are maybe not exposed to, that didn't grow up in a Christian home. And it's, for me, it's important that it's, Christians do cool things too. It's cool to be a Christian.
Right. Speaking of kids, maybe take a shot of this here. This is one of your handouts, rallydrifting.com, always tons of sideways action. But down at the bottom, kids, study hard, work hard, play hard, treat others as you would have them treat you. This is a kind of a motorsports version of much of the gospel.